Hi, I'm Johnny. Today's topic is about the impact of Draymond Green's one-game suspension on the Warriors. Devin Booker of the Suns scores 38 points, evening the series 1-1.
No vest.
The first piece of news is definitely bad for the Warriors, as they're currently 0-2 down in the series, and their key player Draymond Green will be suspended for one game. In other words, even though the Warriors are finally back at home, Draymond Green, who ranked 4th in this season's Defensive Player of the Year voting, won't be playing. This will have a huge impact on the Warriors. Firstly, Green leads the team in assists per game this season, averaging 6.8. His playmaking and strategizing allow the Splash Brothers and Jordan Poole to execute more off-ball tactics. The problem is that playmaking and strategizing are also lacking in Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, and even Jonathan Kuminga. More importantly, having Stephen Curry as the main playmaker is possible, but it would be a significant physical challenge for the 35-year-old. The good news, however, is that Green is only suspended for one game. In other words, as long as Curry, Poole, and even Klay Thompson can maintain their field goal percentage, the damage can be minimized. Now, let's talk about the offensive side. Moving on to the defensive end, the biggest impact of Green's absence will undoubtedly be on the Warriors' defense. Firstly, as mentioned earlier, Green ranks 4th in this season's Defensive Player of the Year voting. His defensive skills are unquestionable, having won the award in the past. However, this season, the Warriors' biggest problem in their lineup is the height in the paint. There's no right or wrong with this issue, as the team won the championship last season with the same setup. With Green suspended for one game, the team will have to rely more on Jonathan Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins to defend the Kings' all-star, Domantas Sabonis. However, using forwards to guard Sabonis could pose height problems. If the team uses JaMychal Green or Kevon Looney to guard Sabonis, they'll have to be careful about foul trouble. In fact, Looney had foul trouble in the last game. If the Warriors' big men get into foul trouble too early, their fourth-quarter adjustments will be more passive. JaMychal Green is a versatile front-court player, averaging 6 points, 3 rebounds, and shooting 37% from the three-point range this season. You won't have any problems on the offensive end, but there's a noticeable gap between his defensive abilities and Green's. So, with a 0-2 deficit and Green's one-game suspension, the pressure on the Warriors is immense. The second point, which is also the most important one, is that with Draymond Green on the court, the head coach can decide whether to go big or small. After all, Green can play both power forward and center positions, and he can defend multiple positions on the floor. At this stage, the Warriors can only hope that Kevon Looney, Andrew Wiggins, and other front-court players can hold their own in the paint. Another issue is that the Kings grabbed 29 offensive rebounds in the first 2 games, which the Warriors must address when returning home. However, without Green, who averages 7 rebounds this season, the team must be more careful in boxing out. In reality, the Kings have had at least one big man on the court in the first 2 games. The 6 feet 11 inches Domantas Sabonis played an average of 37 minutes per game, grabbing 4.5 offensive rebounds per game. Additionally, the 7-foot Alex Len, despite averaging only 10 minutes in the 2 games, managed to pull down 1.5 offensive rebounds. More importantly, due to his 7-foot height, he forces the Warriors not to use a smaller lineup, otherwise, his mere presence near the paint will put a lot of pressure on the Warriors. Now let's get back to the core issue. As we mentioned in the video yesterday, whether you think Green's action was intentional or if Domantas Sabonis was protecting himself or deliberately trying to trip Green, it doesn't really matter. The point we're discussing is that Green's action could result in injury to a player, and therefore, it should be avoided. What's even more important is that Green was ultimately ejected, and the team lost. Losing the game might not be the worst part, the real concern is if he's suspended, which would be even more damaging to the team. Frankly speaking, it's fortunate that he's only suspended for one game. But what if it were 2 games? What would the Warriors do then? Another point is that if a core player cannot manage their emotions better, and they lose their composure when provoked by an opponent, causing the team to lose or be unable to contribute at all, the losers will undoubtedly be Green and the Warriors, right? A day later, when everyone has calmed down and looked back at that play, I believe some Warriors fans would agree that the move was unnecessary. It's not about whether it was intentional or not, but rather that the action could harm the opponent and even one's own team. The Warriors are pursuing back-to-back championships, so the focus should be on winning games, not seeking momentary satisfaction. Additionally, the NBA commissioner was actually present at the game, and he saw Green provoking the fans. In my opinion, this may have influenced the punishment. Whether a one-game suspension is too light or too heavy, we respect differing opinions. Once again, it's okay to have minor actions, but please avoid actions that could cause injury. This is the simplest way to protect yourself and others, and this incident serves as a perfect example. Now, let's get back to the games. There were 3 NBA games today. The Celtics defeated the Hawks 119-106 at home, securing their second consecutive win. In fact, the Hawks didn't play poorly in this game, as they only trailed by 9 points after 3 quarters. In the early fourth quarter, after Bogdan Bogdanović hit a three-pointer, the Hawks were only 8 points behind. However, Derek White scored 8 consecutive points, including 2 three-pointers, and Marcus Smart added another three-pointer late in the game. At this point, the Celtics led by as many as 20 points, essentially ending the game. Although Trae Young scored 24 points for the Hawks, he had 5 turnovers. DeJounte Murray scored 29 points, and there was a clear difference in team strength between the two sides. My opinion remains the same. The question now is how many wins the Hawks can get. At the moment, they must avoid being swept. Regarding Trae Young, according to foreign media, he was voted by players as the most overrated player in the league. This is not surprising, as the backcourt pairing with DeJounte Murray has not improved since he joined the Hawks. Nevertheless, Young's individual stats are impressive, and he is a max contract player. His defense is also a significant issue. Next up are the Knicks' Julius Randle and the Raptors' Pascal Siakam. We will discuss this list in detail another day. Jason Tatum scored 29 points for the Celtics, while Derek White contributed 26 points. Speaking of the Knicks, their opponent today was the Cavaliers. At halftime, the home team Cavaliers already led by as many as 20 points. The Cavaliers maintained their lead throughout the second half, and in the middle of the fourth quarter, they were ahead by as many as 29 points. The final score was 107-90, and the series is now tied at 1-1. Just talked about Julius Randle, who scored 22 points and grabbed 8 rebounds in the game, but he also had 6 turnovers. Additionally, Jalen Brunson and RJ Barrett both struggled in this match, shooting 9-4-30 combined. So, it's not surprising that the team lost. However, the Knicks did win their first game, so in some sense, this away trip can be considered a success. One player to watch is Julius Randle, as he fell during the final moments of the fourth quarter. Besides monitoring his injury, whether he needed to be on the court at that time is also up for discussion. After all, the team was trailing by 20 points with only 2 minutes left. Personally, I think he could have rested, as a 1-1 record in the first 2 games is acceptable for the Knicks. On the Cavaliers' side, Darius Garland scored a team-high 32 points. Fans should know that he scored 26 points in the first half, so it was definitely his night. Caris LeVert also had a solid performance, scoring 24 points. However, we should pay attention to veteran Danny Green. Although he scored only 3 points, he had 2 steals. His defensive abilities and on-court experience are valuable for the Cavaliers. Finally, let's look at the Clippers versus the Suns. This was a must-win game for the Suns, otherwise, going down 0-2 in the series and heading to the Clippers' home court would have been a lot of pressure. However, in the first half, led by Westbrook's 17 points, the Clippers were mostly ahead. But at the end of the second quarter, CP3 and Devin Booker combined for a 5-0 run, helping the team tie the score at halftime. Speaking of Devin Booker, he put on a show in the third quarter, scoring from mid-range and hitting threes. This helped the Suns lead the Clippers 92-87 after 3 quarters. In the middle of the fourth quarter, Booker scored 4 points in a row, giving the Suns a double-digit lead. Although Westbrook and George continued to score, CP3, the veteran, not only scored but also dished out assists in the final moments of T. After the Suns lost their last game, we discussed how head coach Monty Williams could be bolder in his player rotations. In this game, 3 bench players logged over 13 minutes, so there were adjustments made. However, I personally think it's still not enough. In this game, KD played 44 minutes, following a 45-minute performance in the previous game. Additionally, Devin Booker, who scored 38 points in this game, also played 45 minutes. Simply put, the Suns still heavily rely on their starting lineup, which is a significant test of the players' stamina. I hope the bench players get more playing time, otherwise, it's hard for the team to have surprise performers like the Kings' Trey Lyles and Davion Mitchell, who contributed to their back-to-back wins. Speaking of Devin Booker, he scored 38 points and dished out 9 assists in this game, not only scoring himself but also helping teammates score. His performance today was excellent, but I'd like to talk more about CP3. Although he only scored 16 points and had 8 assists, his pick-and-roll collaboration with DeAndre Ayton in the final moments of the fourth quarter left a deep impression. This is actually CP3's signature play style. As for the Clippers, Westbrook and George's performances were decent, scoring 28 and 31 points, respectively. However, the Clippers' 15 turnovers were a key factor in their loss. Despite this, with the series tied at 1-1 after the first 2 games, the Clippers have already regained home court advantage, so the pressure is now on the Suns. In a lighter note, Westbrook blocked KD in the game, jokingly suggesting there might be some emotions involved in that play. As for which of the 2 former friends will advance to the second round of the Western Conference playoffs, let's keep watching and find out.